Hey guys, welcome back. This is Lucid. We're jumping back into our game with Hinnom. It's turn 32. If you recall in the last episode, we had a major turn in events, and that this war that I've been pretty soundly losing, and I think that's pretty damn fair to say at this point with Abyssia, has come to an end. And that is because he's getting attacked by Saramadia, and we have managed to inflict some attrition on him. So if you kind of think about it, the keys to getting out of a war you do not want to be in is your A, ability to inflict attrition, and then B, having some kind of like looming threat, which represents more attrition in the future, like I had big standing armies around, and then C, having other people that now attack the person you're attacking. That's the perfect way to get out. I was open to continuing the war against Abyssia once Saramadia joined, but Abyssia actually approached me with a very generous offer, because I think I don't think I would have got out if he didn't give me any of his territory. So, if Saramadia actually gains territory attacking Abyssia, we'll be in a really good position, I think, because then that means we have a weak neighbor instead of a very strong neighbor, which will make for. I can't attack him for a long freaking time. I mean, really, if you look at it, I can't attack him for a year and a half. And that's if I end my nap immediately. Yeah, immediately at the end of the first year. So, but still, I would much rather have a weak southern neighbor than a strong one. So, message from Machaka. If things continue to get worse for you, we'll strongly consider breaking our nap with Abyssia and taking their island. Okay, so that's good. A message from Abyssia. Fall of Year 2 treaty between Hinnom and Abyssia. 1. Return to land. Return of land. 72, 76, 78 to Hinnom, and 87 to Abyssia. Lake to Hinnom. 88 and 109. This actually should be 83 and 109. To Hinnom. These are his throne and the forest near it. And then, this is kind of redundant, because I think 109 is the throne. Oh, no, it's not. Where's 109? Oh, 109 is this. So this and this go to me, and then this goes to me. So those are the terms, and they are quite favorable for losing a war. But I think the fact is we've killed enough Burning Ones that he doesn't have a Burning One army he can roll up into my cap, and Saramadia is pretty big, so them attacking him is kind of an existential threat. So I think it was probably a good idea. If I were Abyssia, I probably wouldn't have given me quite so good a terms. I know I wouldn't have taken it if I didn't get any land. Because the reason he wants to get out is because he's going to be split pretty heavily. And I'm starting to get to the point where I'll be able to bust through this PD. And I also have more time to put into my turns. So I'm not going to be making these retarded mistakes around over-fatiguing my super combatants. Okay. The other thing, too, is I can't choose to Hellpower. And Hellpower will definitely deal with some fatigue issues if I put the right gear on my guys. This also is going to be a good time to talk about what my new kit is going to be for my super combatants. Because this was... I know they looked kind of tough, even though they died a lot to these really strong Abyssian infantry, but... that was just Bush League Milkworts. We're going to be getting into the real Milkworts now. Anyway, okay, so our god is alive. That's awesome. We'll take a look at him in a minute. Here are all the provinces continuing to trade hands. We attacked him. We'll just watch these real quick. So this was, I think, like 10 PD or something? No, like 4. Okay, so they're going to die. Here we are attacking... This actually is a fair amount of PD. And it's heavy cav. So we might have gone a little too hard here, but... it's okay. Fire Shield's pretty good, but, you know, the lance charges and stuff, like, we did take 17 damage. We want to be careful. This is probably too careful. I didn't really need regeneration. But things could have gone bad, you know, I could have gotten worse checks. And I didn't, he said heavy cav, it's really heavy cav plus these light cav. If it were like more, I think there's different types of heavy cav provinces, and if it were stronger, like more heavy cav, we would have been in more trouble. Here we are taking our Amazons back. The other thing too is I think he had a fair amount of assassins in my land, so him pulling those out is kind of nice. I didn't really have bodyguards for all my guys, or for enough of them, where it would be a big assassin deterrent. You can see some of these guys are enlarged. That guy almost dies, actually. So he lives. Okay. Now this is the tough one. This is all the Abyssian PD, and this is 40-50 PD. It's a lot. The thing is, these guys cost so many resources. To get this many PD with resources would take a long time. Yeah, these also, if you can get mass protection on these guys, they become kind of ridiculous. So that is definitely part of his strat, and that's something we're going to have to figure out efficient ways to clear huge amounts of PD, especially with some kind of mage support. Like, the fact these guys get Fire 2 and they can Phoenix power up to Fire 3 is pretty cool. But he can also have his own mages running forward, and they can do all sorts of really annoying things. Mostly Bonds of Fire, but Incinerate is also pretty good if we don't get our fire resistance really high, but you can see here it's pretty high. Anyway, we've all buffed up, and let's see how this goes. We're ethereal too, and they do not have magic weapons, so that is a big deal. Our mages have made it out. Okay. And you would think we would have done better the other times, but you can see our fatigue situation. Having these Boots of the Messenger is a pretty big deal. This guy, I don't think he's even gone berserk yet. Yeah, he hasn't gotten hit. Okay, he just got hit, so he went berserk. He's going to start getting fatigued now, too. Yeah, but if your fatigue slowly creeps up with pretty killy guys like this, like if you look at it, I mean, we're deleting 2 guys per turn, basically. These are such high damage attacks and such high attack rolls. Okay. So there we go. That's basically that. And here we go, Fortune Teller coming into place. 3 afflictions were occurred, nice, and a new famous hero. Let's see what we got. Lightning Reflexes, so increased defense skill. Actually very good on a Repel Super Combatant, because we will definitely be able to leverage high defense. So it's nice. It looks like he got +3 to start. No, +2. And then he's got an extra... Oh, no, I don't know why he's got... Oh, it must be his shield. Trying to figure out why his defense was so much higher. Okay, so now that we've cleared out the PD, we're going to be basically moving in our hit squad, which is going to take out the castle. It's only 250 defense, and this is 290 siege strength, so we should pop it this turn. I'm moving in another commander, so if I want to, I can split them up and move them back next turn. The other thing is, especially with the assassin threat gone, we are going to be site searching more. So basically, we're going to be moving this guy out here, and this guy out here. They're equipped with items, so they're now Fire and Earth 3, so they will do a good job site searching these things up to very high levels, and that's gonna save us some money on, or some gems on remote site searching, which is something Hinnom loves to do. They can remote site search better than I think any other nation, but it costs gems. And the thing is, with drain scales, the opportunity cost for losing these mages is rather low if we don't have items on them. And so far, we've got most of our little mage centers. Everybody has an outquill. Here, you can see some people don't. Here, most people do. And then here, a lot of people do. So as we kind of continue, we're making a lot this turn. I think all of our air armies are making, or almost all of them, are making outquills. 2 outquills here. Yeah. We're making some more bracers of protection and stuff, but the thing is, the bracers of protection, that's not really going to be our thing. So let's go ahead and let's talk about what our air kit, or what our kit is really going to be. Our god is here, so let's take a look at his paths. Everybody can remember. Fire 6. So we have very easy access to Eternal Pyre. Air 4, Blood 4 is going to open up Robe of the Magi. Air 4 is also just freaking awesome. Yeah, and Water 4 and Fire, that is going to open up Elemental Staff of Elemental Mastery. It's also just having high water and fire is going to open up Rune Smashers, which is very important on Hinnom because we can mind hunt with the best of them. Literally with the best. It's one of the best mind hunting nations, so that's one of the reasons why this is good. If we look at our, I was thinking nation. Then we have token crosspaths, right? And so our token crosspaths are Earth, Astral, Death, Nature, and Blood. Important ones here are obviously Earth and Astral, which is the most important crosspath in the game. Not very much, but what it does mean is that we can load up like the Robe of the Magi, or any of the other Astral boosters that we can make. Like we can already make Starshine Skullcaps. And then with those we can make a Crystal Coin, and basically we can climb this guy up pretty high in both of these crosspaths. And especially if we start getting our national heroes, we don't really need super high paths on our Pretender, because our nation gets super high paths for our heroes if they ever freaking come. Death is important for basically doing Twiceborn, so we get a better chassis if he dies. And then Blood, super nice for getting all of the Blood summons. Like we don't have access to Blood Air easily or Blood Water. So those are the big new ones that it opens up for us. Also Blood Death, so we can get into vampires. So anyway, and he has pretty freaking useful blesses for our Milkwort. So I'm pretty happy with this Pretender design. But again, I've been getting my ass handed to me, but by a good player. So there's honor in that. Anyway, but he's online now. He also researches for 47, which is not a trivial amount even at this point in the game. So. But we have other things for him to do. He's going to get Empowered in Death, then he can make Skull Staffs. He can also, and I'm not sure the order. I'm going to have to get to Enchantment 4 before I can do Twiceborn, which is, I think I was thinking I could already do it, but I've got to go up one more. It's not a super high priority. But we'll see. After I hit Construction 6, things are really going to pick up, because I have a ton of Fire Gems. Basically, I'm going to put all my hammers on all my fire armies, and I'm going to start making like 6 lanterns a turn, which is kind of a crazy amount. And it's going to be super efficient because I already have so many hammers. So anyway, that is pretty happy with that. And by the way, the next turn is my real turn. So hopefully we get through this episode, we go to the next turn, and we'll deal with that. Yeah. And I'm also glad that I made peace with the PC before this guy came out, because he totally could have gotten sniped, and that would make me very, very unhappy. Yeah, he would get wrecked by one of this guys. So before I go to war again, I probably need to think about putting some armor on him. Maybe giving him a Coral Sword, something so he has a bit more HP, and then making sure I cast Twiceborn. And that will go a long way to preventing him from getting sniped. One of the problems with this build is taking Astral 1 on your Pretender is always very risky. It basically means if he's in combat and they have Magic Duel scripted, then he's dead. And if a good player knows you may bring your Pretender to combat, it's highly likely they're going to script a Magic Duel a couple times if they know he has this vulnerability. But my guy's mostly going to be a Lab Rat. He's not really going to be in combat very much. Though certainly he can show up, and with Twiceborn I wouldn't be super duper worried about it. So I think that's it. Oh, we're going to talk about items we're going to make. So we're going to have a fair amount of Blood Slaves. At the beginning, we're not going to have a ton of things to put it in. I think later we're going to switch into being a Vampire Nation. But for now, I think what we're going to put a lot of our Blood Slaves into is Armor of the Souls. And there's a few reasons this is really solid armor. One is it's only Encumbrance 1, and what that's going to mean is... let's take a look at one of our Milkworts. So they are Encumbrance 4, which is based off of... Oh wait, they're higher actually. I think some of it comes from the shield. Okay, like this guy. Yeah, Encumbrance 5. So the armor is 2 encumbrance and a 2 map move penalty, and the shield is 1 encumbrance. Okay, so getting rid of the shield actually helps a lot with encumbrance, but also getting a more a better mage armor is better for encumbrance. Getting Blood Magic 1 is not something you often care about on a super combatant, but in our case it's something we're going to care about a lot. And we'll go through why. And I don't want to ruin too many surprises from later episodes, but anyway, I can't really ruin that much since next turn is my current turn. And this is my current thinking, but I am going to kind of give up the ghost on how to build my Melkort super combatants at this point. So, Magic Resistance 5 is a huge deal. That is such a high magic resistance bonus. Reducing the encumbrance penalty, this is going to be doubled for every spell we cast. So switching this armor out is basically going to give him 2 fatigue for every time he casts a spell. So if he does 5 spells at the beginning, switching from whatever armor he has to this is going to give him a bonus 10 fatigue, which is very significant. Blood Magic plus 1 is going to open up casting spells that we otherwise wouldn't be able to cast. And I think we can make a Melkort that is so amazingly terrible that it's basically going to be impossible to kill. And I'm not sure which one's going to be the best variety. I think you could kind of argue about it, but of all my different variants, like the Fire, Earth, Astral. But if we move them in with Fluffers, it's going to be very, very scary. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about the rest of the gear. Now, for the hands, we have 2 options. One is going to be the Flesh Eater, which would be very good if we're worried about morale, and this will give... but it's going to hurt our fatigue by 2. So that's something to consider. But anyway, it's a very, very good option. The other major option we're going to have, and we can totally do both of these, because if we put 2 weapons on them, we're going to get rid of our shield, and that's potentially valuable. And we can't see it yet, but it's going to be the Bloodthorn. And the Bloodthorn is going to get my blood up plus 1 too. So if we do that, basically we're not using a ton of gems on our Melkort, but we're putting really good gear. It's going to take care of a lot of the fatigue issues. It'll be less good if I'm worried about Skelly Spam, like if I'm fighting Saramadia. I think Bloodthorn will still work on the Ghost because they're lifeless, but not... Or they're undead, but not lifeless. Though I may need to test that. But either way, I'm not really going to, I think, use that primarily for healing, though it will also do that. By getting up to Blood 5, let's talk about what that's going to give us. So Blood 5 is going to allow us to cast Hell Power easily. Okay, the problem with Hell Power is... I forget where it is. I know it's not higher than 5. Maybe it's even 2 or 3. I know you guys are probably looking at it like, come on, buddy. Am I going to literally have to pause it to find it? Okay, here it is. It's Blood 2. Sorry about that. Sometimes I'm a little retarded. So, okay, let's look at Hell Power. Costs 3 slaves, Blood 3 to cast. 300 fatigue, though. This is a big problem. If you're doing Hell Power not as part of a communion, it is going to rock your socks off with fatigue. Now, the ways to counter this are, if you're higher than whatever this path is, like path 3, you're going to cut it in half. So for 4, it's going to be down to 150 fatigue, but that's not great. It's still going to knock us out. But if we're 4, we can put 4 Blood Slaves in it. If we're 4 and we put 4 Blood Slaves in it, we'll be casting it as if we were 5. And what that will mean is we're going to divide this by 3, which will now make it cost 100 fatigue. But if we get up, and that's still not great, but if we get up to Blood 5, we can now put an extra slave in it, 1 extra slave, and that'll be like we're Blood 6, and then we'll be dividing it by 4, and what is that? That's like 75-ish. 1 second, I need to get my calculator. Okay, I did the math. Right, it's 75. I think, but I'm not totally sure. I'll have to check. I think if we're 5, we can also put 5 slaves in. And it will still get the additional fatigue reduction. And if we do that, then it'll basically get us down to 60 or something like that, which is now a very reasonable amount of fatigue. If we have other means of reducing fatigue on our guy, and plus this is going to give you a huge amount of reinvigoration. So, that's going to be a key part. And we'll be relying on the Fluffers to do a lot of the other things. So, anyway, yeah. Let's let's get on with this. So that's the main thing from Blood. Later on, we'll be able to do damage reversal, and that's one of the main reasons for getting up to Blood 9. And somebody with health power and damage reversal is going to be extremely hard to counter. Extremely hard to counter. But that'll be late game. I mean, my milk crits are not going to fall off. They're going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. But let's finish the items, right? So we've already talked about the first weapons that they can get. Of course, they can wield brands, but I don't think we're going to. For the Repel build, we're really going to want a Vine Shield. So I think the Repel build will be a dagger, which... one second, let me find the length of it. Yeah, I think it's length 0. So we're not going to get a Repel check on that. And maybe we actually need to swap that out for something. So I'll have to think. That will all factor into our calculus. So anyway, that will be... I actually do need to test this. I think... No, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. But we can see. For our head slot, if we're not going Berserk, we're probably going to need the additional morale, and this will also give us some more fire resistance, which situationally can be good. Dark Vision is nice because I do not believe we have Dark Vision. Yeah, no Dark Vision here, so that's also nice. So these fire helmets are very likely going to be something that we're using. We don't really need... We already have Fear. If you put a helmet on, you are going to lose your Gore attack, which is kind of a weird thing. We can also use the helmet slot to get resistance, like Cold, though that's partially built into our Bless. Anyway, there's other options. I think this will actually be our default, and it's going to be super cheap in terms of gems. So literally everybody can have one. We've already talked about the armor. Boots... For boots, there's a few options. Boots of the Messenger are going to give us movement speed. If we're going for the Bloodthorn and we're going for Repel, Boots of Quickness are going to be our best friend, which is why it's really nice that we have access to Jade Amazons. And our Pretender has water, so our Pretender can make Robe of the Sea, which we already have enough gems for, and then we can use that to crank out Boots of Quickness, which we'll actually be able to do in a hurry. And that's going to be super important because it's going to give us +2 attack and defense, which is a big deal. On the other hand, it will make us age faster, and we are pretty close to our max age, so we can be countered by things like Decay. But we can already kind of be countered by them anyway. So, anyway, we're not going to be able to dodge that. So anyway, we've talked about the boots, either probably Boots of the Messenger. We can also do Boots of Youth. If we're worried about Decay stuff coming out, if people figured that out, we can kind of get rid of that with Boots of the Youth, and that's going to give us additional reinvigoration. We can also do Winged Shoes, which can be quite nice for moving around the map quickly. And then Boots of Quickness, which also let us move around the map quickly. So those are kind of, I think, the main things we'll be doing. We might keep a pair of Key Shoes around, just if we go on some kind of like super combatant killing duty, like where we're sniping somebody who's really hard. Those can be good to throw on. And if we're worried about ridiculous fire attacks from Abyssiolator, like Pillar of Fire coming down, we can certainly throw in some Brimstone Boots, and then he can kind of go cry. Next, we have our miscellaneous items. And here we have a few options. We don't have a lot of crosspaths. We don't have any air crosspaths. So while we'd normally like the Stone Bird, but this will cost 8 gems with a hammer, we can go for the much more economical Dancing Trident, which, if we look at the stats, the Stone Bird is going to give us 2 defense, and this is only going to give us 1. So we're kind of missing out on the defense. Yeah, but it's still really good. Yeah, it's gonna be giving us a big repel check against the length 5 weapon, which will be super important. I still have to figure out the Bloodthorn thing. If we don't go for the Bloodthorn, there's a few items we could get. One might be, well, having a brand is always nice, so this is certainly an option. We can't go with something that's going to give us more defense. Heartfinder Sword is pretty good for anti-thug measures. And it really depends. Main Gosh, no, that's length 0. Stingers are pretty good anti-thug, and they're pretty long. So I'm not sure. We could do a few things. Faithful is also an option. You get a ton of defense from it, and you also get luck and affliction resistance. It's a really good super combatant item. So this might be my runner-up, but unfortunately it requires a crosspath, which I only have on my Pretender right now. So I don't really want to use Pretender turns for that. Anyway, there's different options, depending on what we expect. But the Frostbrand might be good against Theodoros, just to have that cold resistance, because he does have a lot of water mages. Yeah. So, that is one of our miscellaneous slots. Is probably going to be the Dancing Trident. The other one we could do... the other one, we have a bunch of different options. If we're worried about Mind Hunt, we can throw on an Amulet of Anti-Magic. And this, in addition to having the Armor of Souls, he's going to be very, very high up. So it's going to be very hard to kill them with Soul Slay, or with Mind Hunt especially. The other options we have, because we're doing a Repel build, we could go for the Dancing Shield, but this is a crosspath that will be kind of tough, and I don't think it really plays to the strengths of this nation, though this would be good against Abyssio. With Abyssio, none of this Repel stuff is going to work, because they have Berserk. But we can go Burning Pearl, and Burning Pearl or Ring of the Warrior. And I think we would prefer Ring of the Warrior in most situations here, because we get 1 more attack and we get 2 morale, and the morale is pretty useful. A little more useful to us than the additional fire resistance. And it only uses slaves. So one thing you might have noticed is we're really hardly using any items here which require a lot of gems. I mean, Boots of Quickness, which is a fair amount, but most of it's slaves. We have Blood Slaves on the item here. This is a 3-gem item. This is going to be Blood Slaves, like we said. This is a 3-gem item with a hammer. For the shield, we're going to have to lay out some nature gems, and nature gems are kind of what's constraining us. But this is a pretty important part of the Repel build. We could also go for an Ice Shield, but I feel like this is going to be a lot better. In that it's going to lower our harass penalty, which is pretty important for us. And it's going to be really good against Miklin, and it's going to be pretty good against Theodoros, I think. And then for the weapons again, yeah, we already talked about the shield, but for the weapon, we can do Brands, we can do Faithful, or we can do the Bloodthorn. And I think the Bloodthorn is where I'm leaning at this point, though I have to deal with the fact that we don't get a Repel check. So it may be better to take something else, and in fact we might. And it could be very situational. It could be if I need a lot of Repel checks because we're going against an army where I think it's going to make a really big difference, like Miklin, I may do one of these items up here I was talking about, like maybe a Stinger or something, and then save the... and then basically rely on regen and other stuff from Fluffers to keep going. But anyway, this is, I think these are all the different builds, and we've run really long because this has kind of been my super combatant thought process. But anyway, that's this turn. So I guess next turn will have to be the actual turn where we talk about my current turn, or next episode. So anyway, thanks guys. There's not too much else to talk about. We're moving armies here. We're moving in here. And, yeah. We're also preparing to really get going with blood hunting. I'm getting a Cohen here. Yeah. So I think that's it. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.